Good morning, everyone. Glad to be with you again. This is Brian Zimmerman, digital content editor for Jazziz magazine. We're back. Another day, another brunch. Very excited for today's guest. I've been listening to him for a long time. One of my favorite trumpet players. You know him as one of the original members of Blood, Sweat, and Tears. You know him from the Brecker Brothers. You know him from so much more. Please welcome to Jazziz Daily Brunch, Randy Brecker.
Howdy, folks. How you all doing?
What's going on, man?
Well, we're waiting it out, but we're having getting stuff done. You know, it's a challenging time for all of us. I've already lost a bunch of people I know, so it's hard to soldier on through this, but we're doing our best.
Good. That's always my first question, is just touching in with you. How you coping? How you staying sane? What are you doing to get through this, you know?
Well, you know, luckily as a musician, I always have that at my fingertips, using the time to study old music, go on various platforms and watch stuff just to fill in blanks. I like to think of myself as I don't know what the word is, I hate to use scholar, but I just try to fill in the historical blanks now that everything's at our fingertips.
Right.
So even before this, I would spend a lot of time watching old videos, listening to the older guys, listening to the new guys, trying to put perspective on everything.
Cool, man.
And plus, you know, working on my horn. Not so much working on writing these days, but I'm practicing a lot as much as possible. And luckily, we're holed away in our house, and my wife and my 11-year-old kid is going to school. In fact, she's in school upstairs now,
right,
as strange as that might sound. And I just wanted to say they've been great. They've been making really well done protective masks and donating them to friends. And well, now there's something on my Facebook page. You can see my daughter Stella talking about it, and they donate all the money to my wife Revati's hometown in Italy, which is really being hit these days by the same thing. They're donating all the money to the Red Cross, and they're actually selling quite a lot now. So,
that's beautiful, man. That's beautiful, and you know, so appreciative that you're doing your part. You know, it's nice to see, as Mr. Rogers used to say, look for the helpers. So, you know, thanks for being a helper through all this. And yeah, we've got all the time in the world to listen. So I've been doing a ton. I know you've been doing a ton, and I actually wanted to start with some common ground between us, which is a shared reverence, adoration for the one and only Clifford Brown. You know, I came across a video of yours. I was browsing Trumpet Herald or something like that. You were giving a master class, and you were saying that, you know, as a young player coming up, you didn't really unlock the secret of this jazz dialect, you know, the language of jazz, until you came across Clifford Brown's doodle tonguing, you know, the ghost noting. And all of a sudden it was like you could speak jazz with the accent. So I wanted just to talk about your early influences, because I know Clifford Brown was a big one. If you could shed some light on his genius, you know, he was only on this earth for a short while, but his impact was enormous.
Well, I was very lucky in the fact that I was born and raised in Philadelphia.
Right.
My father was a semi-professional pianist who loved Clifford Brown. And of course, Philly was the home base, really, of the quintet with Clifford and Max. They played there all the time, Clifford being from Wilmington nearby. There were several clubs to play in Philly, so they were there all the time. And all I can say was that they were both, but particularly Clifford, the talk of the town.
Yeah.
My father we'd have jam sessions, or he would, I was too young, have jam sessions at the house. And there was also another fine trumpet player in that tradition that people don't know, because he moved to Detroit and had a career there, and he also owned some kind of business, but he's still around. His name is Bobby Mojica.
Right.
He was a wonderful trumpet player that first guy I heard live. But they spent time listening to Clifford records. They were all hanging out. So Dad had all the records, literally everyone. And even before I was a little older and stole those records, took them up to my room and started playing along. I had.
You're forgiven for stealing a Clifford Brown record. Yeah.
My father was take it easy with the records, son. You know, but I remember I tell this story when I was about 6 or 7. He was listening to Clifford, and he was so emotionally involved with the music. He kind of grabbed my arm and said, "Randy, look right in my face. Randy, trumpet's the greatest jazz instrument." So I was kind of destined to, I think,
wow,
play the trumpet. In fact, when he was, you can find this on a record I did years ago called "Into the Sun." When I was 2 weeks old, Dad wrote a tune about me. He was a good singer, songwriter, and pianist. It's called "Hottest Man in Town." And in the lyrics, it says, "Randy, you're going to play a horn, maybe a hot fife, and love music even more than your wife." My wife wouldn't agree with that statement, but
that's right.
it's in there. So I was
Artistic license.
Yeah.
Very
I
cool.
was destined to play the trumpet. But Clifford still, to this day, man, what a warm, lovely, melodic, always ideas. He was such a, from what I can gather, such a sweetheart. He had just terrible bad luck in his life. He had a previous serious accident, a car accident. So we missed him
26 or something like that when he passed away. But only a handful of recordings, but every single solo was like it was divinely engraved, man. He was just
I was listening to him last night, actually playing along with a tune called "Minority" by Gigi Grice.
Oh, of course.
So Clifford played that one, and that's late at night. And I've been doing this for years. After they go to sleep, I go downstairs into my practice room and just play along with records to keep my endurance up. Unfortunately, I had a little cyst removed from right above my lip, which was getting bigger, and I was really lucky. The guy did a great job. So it's in the midst of healing now, but as long as I don't strain too much, I can play. So I had a kind of rough week, actually, right before all this. The COVID-19, I had gone to the doctor. I thought I told him just to take a look at it, and he wanted to do a biopsy, of course. I thought that's what we're doing. My wife, it's kind of a funny story. My wife, who, whenever I go to the doctor, just about anywhere, you've already seen her in action, always comes with me to make sure that she knows what the doc says, because things somehow would be going in one ear and out the other. I thought he was just taking a little snippet to do a biopsy. I get back in the car. She couldn't come in because of social distancing. This was, I think, the day before we got the official announcement to really stay inside, so I was really lucky. Anyway, he gave me some Novocaine. He's kind of hitting away, and I told him Freddie Hubbard's story. Really, I'm a trumpet player, so be easy. He holds up a mirror, and I couldn't feel anything, but I got back into the car, and she said, "Oh, he removed it." And I kind of freaked out because I thought he was just doing a biopsy. It actually cut the thing off.
Yeah.
And,
wow.
So I said, "Oh man, is this it? I might not be able to."
That's your livelihood.
Yeah, but he did a really good job, I have to say. So I'm back, just kind of doing long tones, but I have to spend a few days just
taking it easy. It's part of the cruel punishment that is being a trumpet player, man.
Yeah, there was a couple of days there where I was saying, "No, not only I can't go outside, our life changed, but now I won't be able to play anymore." I had some dark days there.
Yeah, man.
But he did a great job. I'm glad I did it, actually, because now I probably
I'm glad you're healthy. I'm glad you're going to get back to playing soon. I wanted to also talk again where we started at the beginning so we could progress from there. A lot of people peg your breakout moment as being one of, founding members of Blood, Sweat, and Tears in that horn section. Yeah. But from my research, I understood there was a period of European travel for you that was also pretty formative to your artistic career.
Yeah,
I don't know as many people know about. What was that European trip? What was that? It was a tour, right?
Yeah, it was in the summer of '66.
Okay.
Now, I have to go back to the Notre Dame Jazz Festival in 1965. I was going to Indiana University. We had a great big band led by Jerry Coker.
Okay.
We won the Notre Dame
phenomenal
Jazz.
Sax player and educator. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the ABCs, Abersold, Baker, and Coker at IU. They were instrumental in even starting jazz education. And we won the festival, got a prize. I got a trumpet prize given to me by Clark Terry, which was a big thrill. He was one of the judges. Nice. And one of the perks, which we seized upon, we were offered a State Department tour of the Middle East and Asia. And indeed, in February, it's about the 51st anniversary. We're still close, all the guys in the band. We went upon a 16-week, 4-month tour of all the Arab countries, also India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, which was then Ceylon. And we stayed over there working constantly for 4 months. And it was fascinating.
In your 10,000 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just, imagine we were teenagers.
Right.
Well, I was probably 19 going on 20. I was almost ready to graduate school. Some fine players in the band: Gary Campbell, wonderful saxophonist, a guy named Stan Gage. A lot of guys ended up in the business, some orchestra guys. We had to change some of the title. Whit Seidner ended up leading the band because Jerry Coker split after a while. He missed Patty Coker's wife too much. And it was a really tough tour. He was an older guy, so after about a month, he split. And Whit Seidner, who became the chair of the music program at University of Florida, was a few years older and written a lot of the charts, so he took over. He had to change some of the titles for the State Department. He had one tune called One Mint Julep instead of One Mint Julep, so that one didn't fly with the State Department. And there was one called African Waltz. That one didn't fly. Instead of African Waltz. And that led to, after the tour was over, I could talk for an hour about the tour. It was so fascinating. Imagine we were in Baghdad, Tehran, all the trouble spots, Aleppo. It's so tragic because I remember the beauty of those cities. We ended up in the Paris of the Middle East, Beirut.
Right.
And then look what happened there, a few years
Just at
later.
A time where they were all right. Yeah.
It was beautiful. Anyway, to make a long story short, the last we went to Greece, and then we noticed in Downbeat that nobody seems to know about this because it was the only year it was held. In Vienna, there was a competition, international jazz competition, and there were great judges. The judges were Art Farmer, Cannonball Adderley, J.J. Johnson, Ron Carter, Mel Lewis, and Joe Zawinul.
Wow, it's a hell of a group.
Yeah, so it was put together by, I can't think of his name now, but it'll come to me, another fine Viennese pianist, Friedrich Gulda.
Okay.
So several of us, the jazz soloists in the band, we were not that far. We took a train to Vienna, and we competed in the festival. And this was fascinating. We were in a youth hostel for about a week. There were hundreds of kids there. And I was lucky enough to make it to the finals. But some of the other young kids there were, you look back on this, is amazing. I won't remember everyone, but we're all teenagers. Some were as young as 16 or 17. Miroslav Vitus was 17.
Wow.
George, Jerry Mraz, Franco Ambrosetti, Joachim Kuhn. We just lost him, Claudio Roditi.
Yeah.
Barry Altschul, Jiggs Wiggum.
All just kids competing in this competition.
Yeah, it was fascinating. And we got to know each other, and we helped each other when several of us moved to New York. Right. Jan Hammer played like Wynton Kelly. So I won second place on the trumpet, and we had a little band, Jan Hammer. Franco beat me. We're still friends. He told me he beat me by 1/10 of a point. And Eddie Daniels and Franco were in the number one. We had a performance, but in our band we had George Mraz and Jan Hammer, me, and a few other guys.
Oh, man.
Anyway, that led, and it was great because we got to know all the judges, and that helped me when I moved to New York. Clark called, asked me to join his band. Mel Lewis called, asked me to join the Thad and Mel band. It was fascinating. But just meeting all those young guys. And a lot of us, those of us who are still around,
still working together.
Yeah, we still play together. It's amazing.
Very cool, man. Yeah, so I'm glad we touched on that because that was you were a kid basically, and
then I stayed in Europe the whole summer. I decided to make my way. Some of the guys there were some European musicians there also. They were going to Munich, München.
Okay.
So I followed them there. Thought it would be an interesting place to start. there was a lot of jazz in Germany then. I forget the circumstance exactly, but I got a room. There was a club there called the Domus Seal, and that was a fantastic jazz club. I ended up playing there pretty often with the great tenor saxophonist Don Menza, who was living in Germany, and there were also ex-Maynard guys living there, and Benny Bailey.
Cool.
And every week there was a guest artist from the U.S., and the club would stay open until the owner Ernst Knauf passed out from drinking too much beer, and then they closed the club. So
That's when they knew. Yeah.
I spent several weeks there. Just a guy named Joe Hyder on piano, who's still around. I still see him when I go to Europe.
Man.
And I branched out, and I think I got to Paris. I met some Parisian musicians. I sat in with Johnny Griffin and Art Taylor. I had nerve, and I spent the whole summer basically in
What
Europe.
an experience, man, for a teenager,
Yeah, and that just sent me off because I met enough musicians there that people
that you had
took
some
my
momentum.
name. Yeah, and of course the guys I met at that festival, because a lot of us moved to New York shortly thereafter. So that was really a way to jumpstart my career. I was really
very nice.
lucky.
Yeah, man. Well, then how did BS&T, how did Blood, Sweat, and Tears enter the equation? Because I imagine a lot of that stuff you were doing over there was straight ahead. And then here's at Jazziz, we call them the gateway drug bands, because they get people into jazz, especially a group like Blood, Sweat, and Tears, who has had some phenomenal musicians come through that horn section.
Yeah, for sure.
And the charts are great too, so we call those the gateway drug bands. How did you link up with BS&T?
Well, gonna think way back. Make another long story short. I was the last guy to join. I had been playing at Juilliard, but now I'd been in New York. I was going to NYU to kind of finish my education, but there was a lot of work in New York, man. And I had met CT, Clark Terry, as I said, and Mel. I started playing in their bands right away. I was playing in Duke Pearson's big band. I have to pinch myself every day. I couldn't believe I was even in New York, let alone now I'm like 20 years old playing with all my heroes. But there was at Juilliard, they had a big band rehearsal, and the guy named Jerry Weiss was the other trumpet player who was going to Juilliard.
Okay.
He had started telling me about this band he was playing in, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. It was just getting off the ground. It was a jazz rock band, horn band. That was the new thing, led by Al Cooper.
Sure.
And really what happened is one of the trumpet players was also a school teacher and decided he didn't want to leave town. So lo and behold, Jerry told the guys about me, and I ended up getting the gig. So I was the last guy to actually join the band.
Very cool. For trumpet players, section work is so important, and it's one thing to be a soloist in a quintet, but there's something about section work. Being in the section, everything's got to be precise, absolutely precise. Did that lessons learned in that group? Oh, we got a special guest from my daughter. Okay.
Oh,
okay. She's a big fan, Randy. Tell me about what it was like to be in that section, versus being in a quintet, playing a ride book, a solo book somewhere, because that's one of the tightest horn sections in jazz rock.
Yeah, it was. Jerry was a great lead trumpet player, and we also had Freddie Lipsius, who spent the bulk of his career teaching at Berkeley and has great books out. He just retired, actually. We're still in touch. And Dick Halligan on trombone, who ended up writing for films. He lives in LA, and he ended up being actually the keyboard player in Blood, Sweat, and Tears after I left.
Okay.
But it was a very tight horn section. Freddie was a genius at writing charts. On that first record, it's all his horn charts. But you're right, they were really specific. You had to play as written.
Yeah.
And I think they were really ingenious charts. That record has gone down in history as, I think, one of the best, not only jazz rock records, but really it's really a classic. All the tunes are great.
Yep.
I thought Al was fantastic band leader, and the rhythm section was all filled with people that had unique individual sounds. Bobby Colomby was not really a studied drummer, but his brother Harry was Thelonious Monk's manager.
Huh.
So he had literally grown up with coming home after
That-
school, and Miles
yeah.
Davis and Monk were in his living room.
So you're
So
sponging that up. Yeah.
he was a real fan of jazz and still is. He ended
Yeah.
up being vice president of Columbia Records. He also was a real smart guy and manages Chris Bodie and had Harry Connick signed to Columbia. So he's still around, a good friend. Jimmy Fielder really had a unique sound on the bass. Steve Katz, very unique sound on guitar, and wrote a great book. Is Steve Katz a rock star? It's fascinating because he was in the Blues Project with Al, and Al was a great songwriter, singer, and not a guy with a lot of technique, but he knew how to use what technique he had to its best advantage. So it was really quite a original sounding band from top to bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we say, so many jazz musicians came through that group. And I will. Yeah, that's my. Sorry about that, Randy. The kids are home. When we started this thing, it was like I have a 3-year-old and a 4-month-old. And we were saying, oh, this is going to be, we'll give them activities. We'll have them do the virtual dance classes. 3-4 weeks in, it's like Lord of the Flies around here. It's like laundry everywhere. The TV's always on, but hey, you survive. You mentioned the meticulousness of those charts. I want to now switch over to the flip side. I know there's a story about you in the horn section with Bruce Springsteen and 10th Avenue Freeze Out, that recording section. You show up. Apparently there's no charts, right?
Yeah, there's no charts on the music. There's music paper, blank
paper.
So,
here, guys.
And we weren't hired. This was me, Mike Sanborn, and a wonderful trombone player, Wayne Andre. We weren't hired to write the chart. And it was a little out, we were good at jamming up stuff. But
right.
This was a little out of 10th Avenue Freeze Out was a little out of our comfort zone, shall we say, because it was really a rock tune.
Right.
And we did what we could. We started getting some ideas. We write them down. We started recording. After about 2 or 3 hours, there's this fiery guy comes into the booth. We had worked really hard on it, and he started saying, "Wait a minute, that sounds terrible. That's not right." He didn't realize kind of who we were, And it turned out that was Miami Steve Van Zandt.
Okay, he was not feeling your horn lines.
No, he was not feeling. It's funny because I've heard him interviewed at this for the same experience from his point of view, and he said, "Oh, I didn't know that they were well-known studio guys or whatever." It didn't matter, but I mean, it's just funny to hear it from his point of view. But he said, "No, that's not what we wanted." So he luckily hummed some lines, and between Steve and us, we put a chart together.
An unforgettable horn line. Very simple, but
yeah. Well, that's all his ideas, and I haven't ever really seen him since. But we also played on a tune called. I got some mileage out of this one, Meeting Across the River, which was just, I actually played a long solo. It was kind of a duet with Bruce on that record. So, so looking back, that was one of the good stories to always tell. Unforgettable, actually.
Randy, you may have seen some questions, some comments popping up on the screen here. People saying hello from all over the place. Europe, down here in South Florida, and people listening. We encourage you, if you have a question for Randy Brecker, feel free to leave us a comment on Facebook or YouTube. We'll put it up on the screen. We will ask. I wanted to move on, Randy, to your stint with Horace Silver. A phenomenal pianist and a band leader. Is not talked about in the same circles as, like in Art Blakey or Mingus or Duke Ellington. But he piloted some of the most important groups in jazz. And I was kind of curious as to his approach as a leader, because we don't hear too much about it.
Well, that's a good question. And I also agree that he's up there with all the rest of those guys. He doesn't really maybe get the respect that he deserves, because not only, people just think of the popular tunes, Song from My Father, The Preacher, tunes like that. But he, I played with him twice, a total of about 2.5 years. And the lesser known tunes, they're great tunes. He really knew what he was doing. Plus, He was there from the beginning. He was a swinging piano player with his own, completely his own style, unique comper, strict band leader in certain ways.
Okay.
On the funky tunes. He didn't want you to play a lot of notes. He wanted us. He would give us each a lecture that we heard. I don't know how many times. He wanted to watch the chicks sitting on the stools, watch their behinds kind of grooving to the beat, pretend we're in a disco, and
Okay.
keep an
Hey,
eye
man.
on the women's, make sure they're moving on the funky tunes. I don't want to hear a lot of notes. Just play it. Give me a good funky solo. On the other tunes, which were more advanced, he was fine. We could play whatever we wanted. And even Mike and I recorded with him, my brother, late great brother. Forget the year, but it was last time I actually recorded with Horace in the 90s sometime, was a record called Prescription for the Blues.
Okay.
And featuring Ron Carter and Louis Hayes. And sure enough, Horace gave us the speech.
Same
Not
spiel.
too many notes, blah, blah, blah. I've heard it a million times, but okay, whatever you say, man.
Yeah.
And we're in the middle of one of the tunes. Mike's playing his ass off on a solo. Wailing away, and Horace stops the take in the middle and says, "Mike, I told you I don't want any 16th notes." So he was really hard on us.
That's right, man.
That.
Wow.
And he would always, of all people, use Woody Shaw as an example of what he didn't want. He didn't want no doodle-oodle. No, none of that crazy doodle-oodling stuff. So
I knew what he
just
wanted.
Had to do what he wanted.
Yeah.
And, but he was very nice man. You know, I should have paid more attention to him. He barely drank, didn't do any drugs, was spiritually oriented, family man, kind of. Love the ladies too.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Before he was married. He always said his father had taught him the value of thrift, because he's one of the cheapest MFs I've ever met in my life. On that same record is funny. Tommy LaPumos, the producer, had a secret fund that Horace didn't know about. So we got paid more than Horace offered us, and we also Horace made everyone buy lunch.
Oh my God! And
LaPuma would pad your check a little bit.
Yeah, we pretend to pay. Well, we did pay, and then Tommy would pay us back.
Oh man, what a good guy! What a good guy!
Yeah, he was great. And,
very cool.
But it was, it was a thrill. Horace deserves, to be up there with all those guys. He had such a wide library of tunes. I mean, and he was able to translate his experiences in other countries to music. He started writing lyrics to his tunes. That's why I started to do it. I used to write lyrics and sing, actually, on Brecker Brothers records, one tune per record. And I got all those ideas from Horace, watching how serious he was with his music and watching him write.
Yeah.
daily.
Well, there you go, man. I mean, I feel the same way that Horace, again, he is adored the world over, but as a band leader, I feel like he should be in that same circle. Art Blake and those other cats.
Yeah.
Randy, let's talk Brecker Brothers, man. I know at the formation of this thing, you and your brother Michael were doing a lot of session work. Right. So tell me about the idea to put this band together. Did it come from the label side, Arista? Did they ask you to do it, or did you individually say, "Hey, let's do this"?
It's an interesting story, actually. Let me get it straight in my head. Well, we had been playing with Billy Cobham. First, we had a band, Dreams,
right,
which featured this is kind of, I have to lead up to it, or you probably wouldn't understand. It was a little different than Blood, Sweat, and Tears in the fact that the horn section was opposite of Blood, Sweat, and Tears, where we jammed all the arrangements. I say arrangements with this up. Was very loose, with a lot of open sections for kind of improvising, and where we could all improvise at the same time. Myself, my brother, Barry Rogers. Billy Cobham had come from Horace's band. Mike had met a guy named Barry Rogers, who had in turn had met two singer-songwriters. The band got together. We got signed to Columbia Records with Clive Davis.
Right.
And had a good run. We were never that successful with sales. Billy left the band after a couple years. we had brought in Will Lee on bass and Don Grolnick on keyboards just to kind of keep up with the jazz part of it. The two singers-songwriters, Jeff Kent and Doug Lubon, sadly are gone now, but they were great songwriters, but they weren't really improvisers. So there was an impasse. But anyway, Billy left eventually to join Mahavishnu. We couldn't find another drummer. He really created the style.
Right.
So we broke up the band, and let me think. I think that was the time we joined Horace Silver again. My brother, yeah, it was, with Alvin Queen and Will Lee.
Okay.
And Horace was more funk oriented. Will was one of the first electric players, but he could swing. And Alvin was a great drummer. Me and my brother working. That was a good band. Anyway, Billy had big success with Maha and started his own band and asked me and Mike to be in that. So we joined and was with Billy for several years. And it was during that period and the Maha period, I think, where I decided, I need to write my own music. I had done some writing on the second Dreams record, 2 tunes called Why Can't I Find a Home and the title tune, Imagine My Surprise. But I hadn't really thought of, I didn't have really that coherent a thought about starting a band or writing. But I had this nucleus now. My brother, I had gone to band camp when I was 15 with Dave Sanborn.
Oh, nice.
He had moved to New York. I thought,
okay.
Man, that would be a great horn section. Plus, out of Dreams, we became very close. Will Lee on bass, Don Grolnick on keyboards. I had met Steve Kahn on some sessions, Bob Mann, another great guitarist, and Chris Parker on drums. And we would have a rehearsal band. They all a lot of them lived in the same building. And we just got together every week. I was writing, because we were all doing a lot of studio work, so I didn't come home and play trumpet. I'd sit at the piano and write. And Grolnick was writing. He ended up recording a lot of his stuff. Steve Kahn still writing and still recording his stuff. So every week, maybe 3 times a week, we get together. I was writing. I'd bring in new stuff. Sanborn and Mike were just practicing. I don't think they had gotten to the point yet where they had.
Oh, really? Okay.
This is all the truth.
Brilliant. Yeah.
They were just great players.
Yeah.
So
an intense shedding during this period, I've heard. Yeah.
And all of a sudden, one day I got a call. I was just to the point where, as far as my tunes, I had written 9 tunes, among them Skunk Funk and Sponge, all the tunes on that first record. And I was just getting ready to do a demo, which is what you had to do. And then I was going to hopefully take it around, sell it, record everything under my name, of course. And, I was planning on sales of 5,000. That's what jazz, or even, people in what we did, 10,000 records, that would have been great. But I got a call from a guy named Steve Backer, who had just signed a production deal with Clive Davis, who we knew from signing Dreams. That's why it's interesting how it's all connected.
Yeah.
Clive had come down and heard the band at the Village Gate, and I was presented with this. Clive loves your music, but he wants you to call it the Brecker Brothers. And I went, what? I've been working all this stuff for by now 2 years.
Yeah.
And I argued with him and said, look, first of all, there's 3 guys in the front line that'll look funny because Sanborn's out there. He's going to look like the long-lost cousin.
Right.
But Clive, being Clive, didn't relent. And I said, well, this is just too good of an opportunity. He was starting Arista. He had bought Bell Records, which is a label company that we had worked for doing a lot of sessions. So it was just too good an opportunity to turn down. So we were called the Brecker Brothers. We had never thought of that name. Clive actually named the band, and he thought of that. It runs off the tongue, alliteration.
It does.
Smart
Nice
guy.
Yeah.
So we went in and recorded my 9 tunes, and it went great. Steve Backer was there. We really knew what we were doing because I had written everything specifically
for this
kind of
group.
like Blood, Sweat, and Tears. There was no room for jamming. We'd breeze through it. We've been rehearsing. We double-checked the horns. I knew how to build things from the bottom up. He was incredulous because he had been working with a lot of free jazz guys. So he was just over the moon about what we recorded. But I got a message from Clive that he wanted to have a meeting with me. So I go up to his office. He was always very nice. He let me hit the vodka drawer. He had a nice bar in there. It's kind of my father image. I'd have a little sip. And he's told me, I love everything you recorded, but you guys need a single. And I said, wait a minute. First of all, you're calling the band the Brecker Brothers, and I wanted everything on there. I don't have a single. I wrote these 9 tunes.
Right.
That was the deal. Once again, in his own way, he said, if you don't have a single, I'm not releasing it. This was Clive. So I trudged back to the rehearsal or little rehearsal place. Remember, the same day we had a gig and we were going to rehearse, and I explained the situation. And like I said, we were good at this. Inside of 4 hours, we jammed up a tune called "Sneaking Up Behind You."
Sure.
And everyone contributed. Everybody in the band. We stuck it on there. Clive loved it, man. The force was with us. That's all I could say. And that tune rose in the charts to number 2 on the urban charts.
Right.
It's kind of a big deal. Next thing we know, the record is in the top 200, got up, on the pop charts.
Right. Yeah, not just jazz. We're talking pop charts.
On the big page.
Very popular. Yeah.
200 got up in the 40s. Which is unheard of, Next thing we know, we're selling 100,000, 200,000. So, in a nutshell, that's the story. And then we did 6 more records, and every record we tried to recreate our hit. I admit it.
Original hit.
Yeah.
Well, so many great musicians have passed through that band. Steve Gadd, Mike Stern. As musicians are coming in, what qualities are you looking for? That fit nicely into that puzzle.
Well, first of all, I suppose it's the personal thing, that we get along with and we can communicate musically and non-musically. We were all best friends in the band.
Right.
It was really like, we were all brothers. But we also had that ability to go many, many multi-directional. I think that's what we look for in guys that could play bebop and could also funk it out, or had some knowledge of all different styles that could go any way we went. Right. And that's really what happened with our various. I say we had. Eventually, Mike started writing and really surpassed anything I could do musically or written.
Yeah, Mike Stern.
So we had 2 or 3 really first-rate bands, but that was the key. Everyone could play anything.
Right. Very cool. A reminder to people listening, if you have any questions for Randy, feel free to write in or a comment. You just want to drop a line, we can read it on air. Randy, let's fast forward a bit. I would love if you could show off that hardware you just got in the mail, man. Something.
Oh, yeah. I thought this was because I just got it in the mail 3 or 4 days ago. It's from from January, the show. This is my 7th
Hello.
Grammy.
Yeah, man. Congrats.
Thanks. It was funny because I forgot to wipe off the package when it got here. I thought, great, that's going to be just desserts. This could kill me. But,
the Grammy is the thing. Yeah. It's been crazy. Yeah. So that was for the album Rocks, right?
Yeah, this is for a record that I did with a wonderful German NDR band. It's for a solo I played on one of my
it's best improvised solo.
Yep. Yeah, best improvised solo. And the record was great. It was a lot of fun to do. That's a first-rate band in Hamburg, Germany, for the TV station NDR. First-rate arrangements, all of my tunes from different periods, by a guy named Jörg Achim Keller. And we had done a couple tours together, and they gave us the okay to record the thing. And it's just a great record. It's a great keepsake for me, first of all. But it's done pretty well, actually.
Nice. Well, congrats again to you for the Grammy win. The current one that's out right now is Brecker Plays Revati. Right. So
that one.
And you got a copy of that you can hold up?
Here, I got one. And my wife, lovely wife, designed the cover, and that's our 11-year-old daughter, Stella. And they actually sing. It's called Sacred Bond, referring to the bond between mother and daughter and me in the background. And they sing the melody in octaves. Stella's already playing saxophone.
Oh, nice.
Alto and baritone. She likes baritone.
Okay.
Alto's playing great. That record also did pretty darn well on radio. So
right. These are all compositions by your wife, Ada
all
Revati.
compositions by
Yep.
Ada, really beautiful melodic works, and she plays great tenor saxophone and soprano saxophone on the record. And we had a great band: Rodney Holmes, Alex Claffey on bass, and Dave Kukoski and Jim Beard on keyboards, and Adam Rogers on drums. And to top it off, my old friend Cafe de Souza just plays some great percussions. It's really a very pleasant record to listen to. So check it out. I put it on. I rarely listen to my own stuff, and this is one I just really like to listen to. I'll just, when I want to cool out, I put it on late at night. It sounds really good.
There you go. Pick up a copy, folks. Amazon, and your website is randybrecker.com.
Randybrecker.com. Yeah, and also go to my Facebook page where our little kid Stella and Ada, like I say, have been making masks, and she explains the whole thing where you can donate to the Red Cross. So go to Randy Brecker at Facebook. You'll see little Stella interviewed herself.
Oh, nice.
Proud of that.
And something you're working on now, a new album in the works, correct?
Well, yeah, I have one that I'm co-leading, although he's really more. This was his idea, and it was a great idea. Eric, my old friend Eric Marienthal, and the work title is Double Dealing. I think that's what we're going to call it, since there's two of us and we were dealing with a lot of difficult music, but also funky and easy to listen to. It was produced by my old friend who produced a lot of the Brecker Brothers records, George Whitty. And on a couple tunes, we have Dave Weckl, and a couple other tunes, we have John Patitucci. And we're just in the process of mixing it now, and it should be out on the Shawnee label sometime in the near future. Everything's kind of in disarray now, but I think in the next couple months it'll be out, and it'll be called, unless they change their mind, Double Dealing. So that's in the can, and we're hoping for the best.
Yeah, that's what we're all doing. I was wondering, Randy, if we could close with this. You know, we all wish with the social distancing and lockdown orders, we could be at a here's a question. Even better. It's from a viewer. Jim Orsetti asks, any unique stories from your New York studio days? I assume he means, being a session guy.
Yeah, there's well, let me think of a good one. The Bruce Springsteen one is up there. Well, let me think. Well, there's a pretty good one. I ought to get it and just tell we'll call back. This one comes to mind really quickly. I did a lot of contracting and for Atlantic Records for Arif Mardin, so I played on a lot of that stuff. And more than one were for the Stones.
Oh wow!
I forget the name of the record, and they were all in the studio. Mick was counting off the tunes. It was amazing, and it's no act. When he was counting off the tunes, he was in full regalia, and he'd go 1, 2, 3.
He's always Mick. He's never not Mick.
Yeah, he was Mick in full. So I miss this guy. My friend Alan Rubin, who was on a lot of the sessions. You guys would probably know him as being in the Blues Brothers movie. He was Mr. Fabulous.
Oh, trumpet player. Okay, sure.
Yeah, and he was the maitre d' in the Blues Brothers movie, and the trumpet player in the Blues Brothers. He always had a great sense of humor, was not afraid to do anything. So on one of the tunes, Mick was up there. It's kind of 1, 2, and Alan stood up on 3. And I think he scared the shit out of Mick.
I was going to say, how did Mick take that?
Yeah. No, he laughed. Alan had a wonderful sense of humor. He would keep us rolling on the floor.
Very nice. Very nice. So a good story from the New York studio days. Thanks for the question, Jim. As we wrap up, here's what I was kind of wanted to do with you, Randy, was, we're all wishing we could be at a jazz club right now,
Sure.
But because of lockdown, because of social distancing, we can't. You famously had a jazz club, 7th Avenue South. So I was wondering if just, as some catharsis for all of us, you could set a scene of a night at 7th Avenue South. Who would be playing? What would it look like? Who'd be there? Take us there, Randy.
Oh, that's a difficult question to really assemble in my pea brain. But, well, what would happen? The great thing about that club was that it was 2 floors. So the music was on the 2nd floor. You walk up the stairs, and the soundproofing was pretty good. So you couldn't hear the music downstairs, and upstairs you couldn't hear the hang, which was by the bar. It was a long bar. There were some video games in the back. Guys would be sitting there. Nile Rodgers, he was a good Pac-Man player from Chic.
Yeah.
George Benson would be in all the time. Miles Davis used to come up and just say anything to anybody. I got to know him well enough to give him a hug when he would leave, and it was like hugging a skeleton.
Yeah, right.
But it was dark downstairs, and the hang was fascinating because it wasn't only a jazz club. It was an all music club, like we were. So one night we'd have Yusef Lateef Quartet. The next night we'd have the Jamaica Boys with Marcus Miller, and everybody was teenagers in that band. He was barely out of his teens. Or we might have Cissy Houston with Whitney Houston as a background singer. So it was similarly the hang. You might see Hiram Bullock hanging out with Cecil Taylor. They became good friends. They were big hangers.
Yeah,
going in the bathroom quite a bit. I don't know, for some reason. But it was just a lot of fun. We were just really close. It was like, once again, a family. We were really close with our co-owner, Kate Greenfield, who's still around teaching school now. It was like a family, and the hang was the greatest. And the music upstairs was always first rate. I could play whenever I wanted, with whoever I wanted. I remember Cedar Walton ambling over to me from the bar, saying, I played with him a lot there. He came up and said, "Hey, Brecker, ain't it about time for the All-Stars?" Because that's what we call ourselves. I said, "Okay, we'll do that in a couple of weeks." Or Slide Hampton would be down there. So it was the whole spectrum of jazz and funk royalty would come. And there was also, I have to prop up the other club, which was McKell's, run by Pat McKell and her husband. They had a similar policy where they would have Art Blakey one night, and then Stuff with Richard T.
Right.
And
Oh yeah.
Steve Gadd the next night. And so we would go up there. People would. That was on 97th Street, and we were in the Village. There were people who would just go up and down the West Side Highway. You go up to McKell's, hear us go back to ours, go up to McKell's. So
little smooth, little straight ahead.
It was really good days, and it was quite a hang. Miss it.
Yeah, and perhaps on the other side of this thing, we'll be able to hear live jazz again. I know we will.
We're waiting.
Exactly. And hey, man, this certainly helps the wait. Randy, it's been a pleasure talking to you, catching up with you. Congrats again on the Grammy.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me for brunch, man. This was nice.
Yeah, you were great, man. Thanks for doing this. We got to all do what we got to do.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. Check out Randy's Facebook page. His family's helping out with the mass, and also to stay up to date on all things Randy. There it is, randybrecker.com. Coming up for us on the show, we've got my friend Benny Benak III. He's an amazing vocalist, keyboardist, trumpet player. He'll be on tomorrow. And then Jay Beckenstein of Spyro Gyra is going to join us on Friday. So, and then lots more the following week. So 11 a.m. Eastern, Jazziz Daily Brunch will be here, and we hope you can join us. Randy, man, cheers. I brought my Oy Vey, it's hot mug just for you, because you bring the heat, my friend.
Yeah.
I don't bust this out for just anybody. Randy, thanks so much.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, son.